I'm Kelsey, and today I'm going to be showing you how to find inverse derivatives. So let's get started. This is a relatively simple problem we're going to start with, and it's f of x equals x squared minus 2x plus 1, and you're going to find g prime of x given that f and g are inverses. So if you remember, an important thing about inverses is that the inputs of a function are the outputs of the inverse, and the outputs of the function are the inputs of the inverse. So basically, in short, the x's and the y's are flipped, so we can rewrite g of x as f of x, but with the placement of the x's and the y's switched, and this makes more sense as I write it out. It's x equals y squared minus 2y plus 1. Now we're going to differentiate in order to find g prime of x. And so the derivative of x is 1, and the derivative of y squared is 2y times the derivative of y with respect to x. And the derivative of negative 2y is negative 2 times the derivative of y with respect to x. An important thing to remember is that the derivative of 1 is 0. So that's a common mistake, is just messing up rules of derivatives and kind of the implicit differentiation, having difficulty with that. So now you can see I am factoring out the derivative of y with respect to x because that's what we're trying to solve for. And so in order to do this, I'm going to divide by 2y minus 2 on both sides. And that will get us our answer. And just to clean it up, I'm going to factor out a 2 in the denominator. So it's going to be 1 over 2 times y minus 1 equals the derivative of y with respect to x, which is going to be our g prime of x. So here we have the rule that's given to find usually the inverse derivative at a point. So you can see that if g and f are inverses, then the derivative of g equals 1 over f prime of the inverse of f of x. So here's a proof. You can read through it if you would like, or pause the video here. It's pretty self-explanatory, but if you want a deeper understanding, here it is. So here we have a problem that you're more likely to see, and it's f of x equals x minus 1 squared plus log 3 of x. Given that f and g are inverses, find g prime of 5. So what we're going to do is we're going to end up using the formula that I just showed you, and that's that g prime of x, or the derivative of g, equals 1 over f prime of the inverse of f of x. And this can be kind of confusing for some people, so I like to write out like what we know. So we know that this g prime of x value is going to correspond to a g of x value. So we're saying g of 5 is the corresponding value, and now we know that there's a value of f that equals 5, and we're trying to hunt down that value because we're going to be taking the derivative of f at that value and then reciprocating it in order to find g prime of 5. So to start off, we're going to set f of x equal to 5. So I'm going to write 5 equals x minus 1 squared plus log 3 of x. And something important here is because there's a log 3 of x and that the answer is a whole number, we know that it has to be a value that produces a whole number with a log base 3. So I'm going to try 3 as my first test value just because I feel like that would be a nice that will give me a nice answer and could possibly give me the y value of 5. So I'm plugging it in, and what I end up with is 5 equals 2 squared plus log 3 of 3, which is 1. So 5 equals 4 plus 1, which is true. So we know that f of 3 equals 5. So I'm just going to write that in. And now, since we found that, we find the corresponding derivative at that point. So we're going to find f prime of 3. And in order to do that, we need to find the derivative of f of x. So I'm just going to rewrite f of x so it's a little bit clearer. It's x minus 1 squared plus log 3 of x. And now I'm going to differentiate with respect to x.
It was like the one with like the
So we get f prime of x equals 2 times x squared minus 1. Make sure to distribute the 2 correctly because that's a common mistake. It's just writing 2x minus 1, not 2x minus 2. And then also the derivative of log 3 of x is 1 over x ln 3. Just remember those rules. And then plug in 3. So evaluate the derivative at 3. And you get 2 times 3 minus 1, which is 2, plus 1 over 3 ln 3. So you get 4 plus 1 over 3 ln 3. And I'm going to multiply to get a common denominator. So I'm going to end up with 12 ln 3 plus 1 over 3 ln 3. And I'm going to leave the values exact for this problem. So we get that f prime of 3, I'm just making sure I write that next to all of them, equals 12 ln 3 plus 1 over 3 ln 3. And since we know, because the formula is given, that g prime of x equals 1 over f prime of the inverse of f of x, we can just reciprocate the answer we got for f prime of 3. And so for g prime of 5, we get 3 ln 3 over 12 ln 3 plus 1. And I'm just going to leave the values exact here. So that's our answer. An important thing to note is that for this problem at least, we could have just solved for the equation of g prime of x, like we did in the previous problem that I showed you. But for problems like this one, which I'm about to show you, you can't just solve for the equation because it's not given. You're not given any equation, so you just have to use what you're given in order to find the answer. So here you're given that f is differentiable and invertible, and it passes through 2, 4, and has a slope of 1/3 at this point. And now we have to find the derivative of g of x, which is the inverse of f of x, at x equals 4. So just because these can be kind of confusing as any word problem, I like to write out what I'm given first, because I find it to be extremely helpful. So I'm just going to write out that it's given that f of 2 equals 4, and that f prime of 2 equals 1/3, because it's given that the instantaneous slope at that specific point is 1 over 3. Also, I just like to write out what I'm looking for. So what we're trying to find is g prime of 4. So another thing that's important to know is that we were also given that g of 4 equals 2, because since g and f are inverses, the inputs of f are the outputs of g, and the outputs of f are the inputs of g. And since we know by the formula that I showed you in the previous problem, g prime of 4 equals 1 over f prime of 2. So we get g prime of 4 equals 1 over 3, which equals 3. And that is our answer. So quick before I go, I just want to go over some common mistakes that people make, and these include messing up derivative rules or just forgetting that the derivative of a constant is 0, the special rules for logs and exponentials, the chain rule, product rule, quotient rule. Also, an issue people have is interpreting the given information, so maybe not recognizing that the slope at a point is the derivative at that point. So when you're going through these problems, just make sure you're reading and totally understanding the information that they're giving you. Also, watch out for multiplication, subtraction, addition, division errors. And also remember the formula, because sometimes people get it mixed up or forget part of it. So that's all from me today. Hopefully you learned something from this video, or maybe have a greater understanding on how to find inverse derivatives. Thank you for watching.